Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the meeting of the Tulare County Board of Supervisors. We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We will be followed by a moment of silence, and I ask that everyone keep in their thoughts and prayers during the moment of silence and continually the passing of Deputy Frank Morales. He was a deputy sheriff within our sheriff's department, and he passed away on May 27th. So please do keep him and his family in your thoughts and prayers. We will be led today by Supervisor Townsend, and remember the moment of silence.
Join me in saluting our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. All right, before we move on and take up item number one, I know that in speaking with County Council yesterday, Council advised me of a need to go into closed session before we got the meeting going today. Council, do you still feel that appropriate?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, going into closed session on the addendum item I.
Okay. Board will adjourn to closed session and reconvene shortly. Board is back in open session at this time. We will now take up Board of Supervisors matters, and we will begin with Supervisor Valero.
All right. Good morning, Tulare County. And given kind of some of the things that have happened this past few weeks, I just wanted to share before I go on to last week's events and meetings. As we seek to understand the challenges and changes of the present, let us not condition ourselves to the usual. Instead, we need to bring back what has been lacking in our country these past few years, and that is love. Love that outweighs inequity, love that outweighs racism, and love that outweighs fear. Sadly, this is a testing time in America, testing every person of every color in every community, testing us with the hard reality of injustice and inequality that continues to saturate everyday life. But I am thankful for, and I am hopeful that many of us will become the bridge that others are turning away from. We need to bring people back to the core because the margins are too much to bear. I can say that for myself, I will continue to work hard at understanding difference, understanding what true belonging means in our communities, and understanding how we can reach out and reach in to support diversity in Tulare County, equity in the state of California, and love across this great nation. We owe it to ourselves, especially in this time, to be agents of hope and agents of change. George Floyd's brother shared a few words yesterday at his brother's memorial site that spoke truth to love. And as he extended his hands up in the air with a peace sign on one and a fist on the other, he said, "Love on the left and justice on the right." His message wasn't about the tear down or take back, but about a message filled with love from all angles, light in the midst of darkness, and justice in communities across this great nation. Presence, yes, presence changes the system, and blessed are the peacemakers who work tirelessly to make it happen. So 2 weeks ago, I shared a graduation speech with the hashtag lead participants via Zoom graduation ceremony, and then signed into a phone conversation with the Kings River East GSA Governing Board. And then last week, I participated in the Ivan Task Force meeting where we discussed issues impacting rural communities. And that evening, I shared a graduation speech to the CSET Tech Connect program. Also last week, I participated in the Ivanhoe Town Council meeting where I updated the community on topics such as COVID-19 and listened to the community about their continued concerns and challenges in the Ivanhoe area. And that is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Townsend.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Just a few things been going on. On the 21st, Harmony Magnet Academy had a school site council meeting on Zoom, and I was able to participate in that just to check the status of how the students are doing there. Of course, everything's really interesting with everybody studying from home and right at the end of their year. But they have a lot of good preparations that they're doing for the next year, along with the rest of the Porterville Unified and especially the Pathways programs. So that was a good call to be on. On the 25th, we took some time on Memorial Day to remember all those who have served this great nation and bought us the freedom that we enjoy. On the 27th, I had a couple of California State Association of Counties committee meetings, also calls or Zoom meetings. One is the Ag, Environment, Natural Resources Committee. Most of that talk was about the sort of the lack of funding that's coming through with the new budget cycle. That's no surprise to anyone because that's just sort of the way it is right now. But there was a little bit of talk about dollars that would be put towards wildfire preparedness, and so things that we'll try to get our hands on here in the county. It's always pretty competitive, but that was a good meeting. And then the next committee was Housing, Land Use, Transportation, and Zoning, Housing, Land Use, and Transportation. And we talked mostly on that call also about the budget, but a lot about the zoning and about more high density type of zoning that is it's in our governor's plan to do. And so there's a lot of different programs happening to go into cities and into unincorporated areas and to sort of upzone. And so just discussed what the position would be. Some of the position with all the 58 counties was sort of guarded at this point because some of those are still taking shape. So that was a really good discussion. On the 28th, I had a call with the Porterville Chamber of Commerce with their Government Affairs Committee, along with our state delegation and some representatives from our federal delegation, talking about how the impacts of all of the shutdown have been on businesses and what would be good strategies moving forward to help businesses as we come out of this now and begin to get back to work slowly. And so again, another good meeting with a lot of our representatives there. And yesterday, our Chairman Vanderpool and myself had a space planning ad hoc committee meeting. Not surprisingly, talking about lack of funding because the revenue projections are lower. So sort of reprioritizing the things that need to be done with county facilities, be as conservative fiscally as possible as we move forward and still address some of the needs that we'll have coming up. And let's see, tomorrow is a local area formation commission meeting right here, and then on Thursday is Eastern Tule Groundwater Sustainability Agency meeting that I'll be having over in Porterville. And that's about all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Supervisor Townsend. Supervisor Strickland.
Thank you, Chair. Last Wednesday, I had our Tulare County Economic Development Corporation meeting, and we discussed what we had talked about at the last meeting as far as options for membership, and the board did decide on option C, which was the membership rate based on population of the county and the cities, which is one that we had been hoping they would do. Also, I had a CSAC board meeting. One of the things that was highlighted and stressed quite a few times was the talk about juvenile detention being put on the counties, and I've talked to the chair and the CAO about that and just keeping an eye on that. And then our SJJPA meeting, which is the Amtrak meeting, our ridership has been down. We have gone from 7 daily trains on the San Joaquins to 4, and we also now will be eliminating the Hanford to Santa Maria bus. So there'll still be a Visalia to Hanford Amtrak station, but no Hanford to Santa Maria, San Luis Obispo. That's it.
Okay, Supervisor Crocker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Highlight a few old meetings since our last board meeting. On the 20th, NACO Public Lands Committee, we met, and there's some good movement on federal PILT and secure rural schools to try and develop that into ongoing funding, so it's not an annual request for funding, and trying to create some type of mechanization that makes sure that we don't have to fight for that year in and year out. There's some good bipartisan support throughout western states to do that, so there's good progress there. The other big thing that was noted is that the national conference for NACO is all going to be online this year, and it's free. And so you just need to register. You still have to register, but so for anyone interested, maybe department heads or others that may have some interest in that, I'd encourage folks to look at that and see whether or not it makes sense, if there's any topics that are going to be worthwhile. I know for the Public Lands Committee, we are looking to have Secretary Bernhardt of Secretary of Interior provide a presentation, and we're planning right now to have about a 3-hour meeting, and they're trying to fill the rest of the agenda for that portion. So maybe a little more informational. The whole policy resolution is going to be different, but that's something that should be worthwhile and a lot more cost effective for everyone, as far as rather than traveling. And just as a note, our own Jason Britt spoke and was on a panel last year at the annual conference talking about generations in the workforce and working with that. So it's been, for the limited time that I've been involved, it's been a good partnership. Also, on the 20th, RCRC, we did go ahead and support legislation to streamline permitting for backup power for cell sites, and so that's moving fairly rapidly through the legislature, state legislature, to try and, whether it's backup generation or battery powers, primarily around public power safety shutoffs. So that was positive. Our Air Board primarily just discussed budget for the upcoming year. There was one thing to note: most of our priority funding is in the governor's priority projects. So the farmer program still has funding as a priority. Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund still has priority funding, as well as some of the AB 617, which doesn't impact Tulare County necessarily, but as a region, focusing on disadvantaged communities for targeted air quality projects. So those were all in there. Unfortunately, what's also in there, and wasn't necessarily highlighted, but everything that has a continuous appropriation, and that includes high-speed rail. So high-speed rail is more important than air quality or water quality, and so they're going to be getting their $500 million continually out of that fund. This past week, as Supervisor Townsend mentioned, CSAC had some policy committees. I think the big push on there was keeping realignment funds and the effort to try and make sure that we maintain those. From the Ag Natural Resources Committee, I think our committee chair, Supervisor Chiesa from Stanislaus County, made an excellent point at the end that this year, because of, proposed $54 billion in statewide cuts, that now is not necessarily the year to look for additional funding, but if we're looking at regulatory reform, that's probably a good shift to look at that. And even if that means delaying upcoming deadlines or where new metrics are going to have to be put in place, and there was some allusion to some of the organics requirements that are coming up via Cal Recycle, as possibly trying to push out those regulations a couple of years, recognizing the impact that it's going to have on our communities from a financial standpoint. And the San Joaquin Valley Water Infrastructure Authority meeting that was scheduled for Friday has been canceled. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Supervisor. So a few things that I wanted to go over. First and foremost, the largest unincorporated community that I represent is the community of Early Mart, and they have been having some real difficulties with their water here this last week. I know that I've received numerous phone calls and emails from members in the community with concern about the water. And I want to, first of all, thank Self-Help and also county staff that has been working diligently to help spread consistent messaging and also work with members of the community and helping to advance the water system and get it back online. Just a quick little recap of what happened. The Early Mart Public Utility District's Mary Ann Street well went down on May 27th, and that resulted in a low water pressure situation within the community. Until the well is repaired, the Clay Street well will serve as a backup. Unfortunately, that Clay Street well is contaminated with 123 TCP. That poses no immediate risk to consumers. Pay attention to all notices received from the Early Mart Public Utilities District. They're working with the California Division of Drinking Water to make sure that they're looking out for the customers' needs in the community. And the hope is that the repairs are going to be completed by the end of this week within the community, and that full service and pressure will be restored to the water system in the community. So I know that's a delicate situation, but we did try to assist with bottled drinking water for the community, but unfortunately 123 TCP contamination does not allow bottled drinking water to be provided by the Division of Drinking Water from the state of California. So again, thank you to Self-Help and county staff who are working to help residents in the community and to get that system back online. Yesterday, like Supervisor Townsend mentioned, we had a very good space planning meeting. It does appear that numerous projects are going to be put on the back burner because of the potential financial situations we're going to be facing in the state of California and in Tulare County. But I do think that because of the board's stewardship and responsibility with the Millennium Fund, there will still be an ability to get some capital projects and needs addressed within the county, which I think is very important. Today I have a conference call with several members of the Allensworth community to discuss the potential takeover and assignment of the Allensworth Cemetery. That has been something that was a facility that was under private ownership for a long period of time, and then all the private owners unfortunately passed away, and no one took over the cemetery. And so the county is by default now in charge, and we're working with the Community Services District to put it back into the hands of the community, which I think will be a very positive thing. There's a LAFCO meeting this Wednesday at 2 o'clock here in these board chambers, and there's a Greater Cahuilla Groundwater Sustainability Agency meeting on June 8th, which is Monday at 1 p.m. That is all that I have for Board of Supervisors matters, and now we will move on our agenda and take up item 2, which is a request to receive an update from the Health and Human Services Agency on COVID-19 status and response efforts in Tulare County. Tim.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, CAO and council. Tim Letts, Health and Human Services Agency Director. And it's been 2 weeks now since I've been here, and certainly we've had a lot of activity over those last 2 weeks. First and foremost, very excited to say that last week on Tuesday, the 26th, we met all of the metrics for acceleration through stage 2 and submitted the plan to the state. There were some questions. We ended up developing a draft containment plan in order to fulfill the requirements from Department of Public Health. Our goal then is, because that was a draft, to finalize that containment plan by June 30. We want to make sure that we take the time necessary to work with our community providers, to work with the different groups that such a containment plan would impact, and make sure everyone's on the same page before it becomes our final containment plan. Again, very exciting chance for us to jump into acceleration through stage 2. So in addition to working on that, we've, I feel, made a lot of progress to address some process improvements internally on contact tracing, investigations, and also our testing volume. As of this morning, cases are at 2,004 cases. Sadly, we crossed that 2,000 mark from yesterday to today. We're at 89 deaths. Our recovery rate does continue to increase. At 1,047 of the people are considered recovered. And then our self-quarantine numbers stay at 1,009 individuals. So I have some brief slides that as I go along, I wanted to be able to share with the viewers on here in addition to the board. So again, our case trending has shown notable areas of improvement over the last 2 weeks. I think that's very promising. Looking at where our increase in positives was, that's the lowest we've seen since April 25th. So roughly a month where we finally have a dip in the number of positives. A little concerned that we're seeing some larger numbers this week, but not necessarily unexpected. When we look a little differently at the data on a day-by-day basis, you can see we'll have those swings. The positive piece, though, at least on this trending, is a downward trend rather than an upward trend, and that's what we want to see. I think when you compare us to where the state's trends are, clearly the state is showing a marked increase in the trending overall. So while we're still seeing more cases, we're growing at a slower rate than the rest of the state is, whereas earlier we were growing at a high rate along with the state. So that's a positive sign. What I think it will also do is provide a good measure for us to then compare against as more businesses, new industries open. We 100% expect to see an increase in the number of cases because you have more people out and about and you have community transmission. What this does, though, is at least gives us a baseline of where we were before that. When we had the initial spike in May, the kind of prevailing logic and theories tell us that spring weather increased, we had Easter celebrations, other holidays, people out and about a little more, we started to see that increase. So when you change some activities of what people are doing, you see that increase, hope we can manage it, and then watch for that next increase, again, continuing to hope we can manage it. In terms of some of the other key pieces that help us manage it is testing volume. So looking at our testing volume numbers, we also were able to increase that testing volume week after week, which is important. That's what we've been wanting to really do and push. We want to maximize the use of the state-funded OptumServe sites and also maximizing the use of our local public health lab for quick turnaround on some of our testing.
Tim, real quick, before you leave that slide, the blue bars, the orange bars, gray bars, I'm assuming that blue bar is county lab?
Yes, so the blue is our public health lab, orange is Optum, and then other sites, so that's all our
Oh, yeah,
hospitals,
okay.
clinics, kind of the mix. I wanted to pull those pieces out, one, because we have better metrics on those. We still have some of those challenges of corralling the data on some of our commercial collections. I also think it's important to note a few things here. Sorry, Supervisor, would you
Just
want to?
a quick question with regards to OptumServe. So I do know that, as I've read yesterday, that the governor is closing some sites across California due to what's going on currently. Has our Optum sites been in any kind of jeopardy as a result?
If so, we have not been notified. So we haven't had any issues at our Optum sites. Sitting here right now, I don't believe we're included in that list, but we did see that as well and definitely are watching that, and we'll let you know if that changes.
Thank
But
you.
right now, I think our Optum sites are secure in the county. So a few points on these testing numbers, and this gets back into our trending. You can see our positivity. So the green arrow off to the far right on these charts shows you what our total positivity was for each of those locations. Where we started 3 weeks ago, 9.9, then 8, now 5.7. Those are numbers we want to see in terms of more people, we're doing more testing, but we're getting a higher rate of negative tests. So that's a very positive indicator, but also one that is variable depending on if we get a facility that we have an outbreak in, whether it be a business or a skilled nursing facility, we're going to see some peaks in those numbers. What the positivity also is doing, and we're trying to work to get better metrics into positivity across the county, because I also want to draw attention to the lower table. And what that's showing is information from our Optum sites in Dinuba and Porterville. What's concerning is the far higher level of positives that we're getting out of the Dinuba area at the Optum sites, which is indicative of needing to continue to expand our testing there and make sure we're doing the right contact tracing and investigations and helping to mitigate spread. So it's a cautionary note and something that we look at closely in terms of what's contributing to our growth of cases in certain areas. And right now, based on our limited Optum data, we are seeing that higher percentage coming out of the Dinuba site that we're watching closely.
I forgot to mention this. I did go to the Dinuba site, like on a Friday, the 22nd, and I tested negative. But I encourage folks to. It was a very easy process, making the appointment and going and getting the test. So.
Good. I appreciate that support. I know we're trying internally to encourage our staff to. If they want to get tested, this is the opportunity. Anyone and everyone can get a test if they want to sign up and go. Recognizing, though, we do still have some testing voids or testing deserts, as the state likes to call them. We are working closely with our FQHC clinics throughout the county. And in fact, today on the board meeting's agenda for consent, there's an item for money through HRSA to pay for testing. The goal really is we want to leverage our community infrastructure where people already are at in our rural communities and start to do testing collection there at an expanded scale. A lot of the clinics are already doing some of it, but we want to partner with them to see how we can expand that. It's important that we start to identify those pockets where we don't have good information on. Please.
Given the low numbers in Porterville, and I know that Porterville has additional resources and opportunities for for individuals to go to other locations, has there been a thought of moving that particular OptumServe site to another location, like saying west of the 99, maybe in communities like Early Mart or Tipton or Pixley?
That is definitely one of the options we have available. I think if we look at where our biggest testing gap is exactly that, Tulare to Early Mart, down that 99 corridor, and that's an area that we want to find options to shore up, whether it's the Optum site, whether it's our health clinics. There are a lot of different ways that we can work on that. Being perfectly honest, the Optum sites do provide, I think, a few more barriers to get a lot of people coming in to use them because it's a pretty lengthy intake process that you have to fill out online, one that assumes everyone has an internet connection to do it. The phone number is spotty at best. And I think when people start inputting some of the information that they're asking for, it also is going to naturally cause a drop-off of some people willing to provide that level of detail. So recognizing those limitations and that as much as we've tried to push the state to make modifications, we feel that maybe a blend of the Optum sites with some locally coordinated options might be a better outcome for us. So we're exploring all of those options and hope to have an update to the board next week or the week after on kind of what those partnerships look like. Also, just a quick note supporting the positive cases, and I apologize, it's a little hard to read. I wanted to catch basically where the threshold of between the 20 mark. So I wanted to show where the last one before 20 and then after we get up to that 20. When we look at positive cases, our numbers still do not look promising in terms of our per capita caseload. However, I will say that we have gone down in that scale, and that's something that we do continue to watch at right now. We're number 4 in the state in terms of our per capita case rate. However, a couple weeks ago, we were number 2. So I do think, although it's very much a concerning trend, that we want to continue to see things like higher percentage of or lower percentage of positive individuals coming out of our collection sites. It's important that we are cognizant that outbreaks can occur quickly and really change those numbers dramatically. A prime example, Kings a month ago was probably 20, 25, 30 within that list, and with particularly their outbreaks at correctional facilities and the meat packing plant, they're now just ahead of us on their per capita rate. And of course, widely covered in the news, the challenges in Imperial County that has a higher per capita rate than Los Angeles does at this point.
And Tim, I was going to ask, I think you kind of covered it, but I just want to make sure that it's pointed out. So the positive cases that are listed here on this chart are inclusive of state prison facilities, correctional facilities that have certain counties have been allowed to exclude from their numbers.
This does include everything.
This does include
That's correct.
everyone. Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
So, and that is an important caveat because you're right. For some of the metrics, they've excluded them, but for others, like general reporting of cases, they're everything. So, and I apologize, this is dark. Rather than recreate the wheel on this one, I wanted to use what our dashboard metrics are. They look great on a computer screen, not so great on a PowerPoint. But what I wanted to underscore as well is hospitalizations. And that's an important piece because this graph and the numbers aren't so important so much as what the trending is doing. You can see we've kind of hit a good average peak or a level within our hospitalizations for COVID. When you look at what the states also put out this week, that's more or less in line with what the state hospitalization trends are. And that's, again, a good indicator. The one concerning piece that I will point out on hospitalizations is that our COVID patients represent about 24% of the ICU beds in use at our hospitals right now. The total available beds currently are about 27%. So what that's telling us is right now the majority of the ICU beds in hospitals have now been filled again. but not necessarily for COVID, but for elective surgeries or postponed surgeries, recognizing that a lot of postponed surgeries needed to happen and were in fact creating life-threatening conditions in and of themselves that were being put off. So I think it's important that we keep watching that. We don't want to eat up all of our hospital beds lest we do have that surge, and then we are into surge beds and alternative care sites, and that's the last place that any of us want to be at. So we're watching that closely and working with our hospitals, continuing our weekly coalition calls. So moving on then to the kind of the latter part of this of my update for you. So the state has also developed what they're still working out, what it's going to be called. Initially, they were kind of calling it a watch list. I think they're moving away from that, but bottom line is what it is it's a list of counties that have concerning metrics that the state is going to be highlighting on some section of the state website. What they've indicated is right now there are 7 counties on their metric watch list, and unfortunately we are included on that list. What we're being told is the posting should occur on Wednesday. And again, we got some of the clarification metrics in the evening yesterday. A number of us were pouring through it, had some questions back for the state. I'm a little concerned in looking through it off at first blush because we're seeing a metric on positivity that's a little different than the one that we used for attestation. And so we're trying to reconcile apples to apples and understand where the state's coming from, because they're showing a much higher positivity percentage than we are. And that particularly is one that we disagree with, and we're trying to understand where they're coming from. But so much is based on the time horizon you use. It looks like they want to use 14 days now instead of 7 days, and what variables they might include or exclude, such as counting a retest of an already known positive person again. All of those types of things we're trying to work through and get clarification for from the state. And I say that because from our perspective locally, we feel albeit there are definitely concerning points, over the last few weeks, we feel we're in a good spot today, and we're continuing to watch the trending metrics as more things reopen. And then basically what that watch list then means is the state will reach out to us. We have to do a technical assistance call, provide them more information on our response. They'll continue to monitor it, and if the situation gets worse, they are asking counties to justify why they wouldn't close down more of the industries that are now open to try and pull things back. So we're hoping, we're a number of weeks away from that discussion and that road. Right now, we just want to see what our metrics continue to do over the next week or two. So wrapping up on the latter piece, I know I spent a lot of time on some of that new information. I think that's important. Just quickly, our SNFs, actually, the numbers have been looking a little better recently, which is positive. We really, Sierra Valley right now remains the area we have the biggest problem with. That's an increase of 19 individuals over the last time that I reported to you, but that is 2 weeks. Relative to some of the numbers we've seen previously, although very high, is at least a slower rate. And then some of the other ones, again, Lindsay Gardens was just an increase of 4, Dinuba Healthcare an increase of 2. So we're seeing a leveling out. Unfortunately, we do have another facility that's below that 11 threshold, but we got some positives coming in yesterday. We're watching it closely, and we'll continue to monitor that. But working with the state on kind of their guidelines for SNFs, we started implementing, we're testing all of the SNF residents to create baseline levels, and then continuing to do disease mitigation measures or watching or monitoring their disease mitigation measures to make sure that the facilities are providing proper care for their residents.
Ask just a quick question. With that new case, even though I know you can't share the information just yet because it's below the 11 threshold, but would you be able to share the industry?
Oh, it is a skilled nursing
Oh,
facility.
okay,
Yes, it is another skilled nursing facility, sorry. Yeah, on our businesses, so we continue to see, we have about 10 businesses that have a few cases. Ruiz Foods increase from the last time I was briefing you was 17. Central Valley Meat, we've increased by 6. What wasn't on my list last time that we have a larger scale outbreak in is Legacy Packing House, which has 31 cases at this point. And what I would highlight here is the consistent trend that we're seeing is businesses with the largest outbreaks are those where they have limited ability based on their current setup and operations to really do effective social distancing and keep work surfaces sanitized. And that falls disproportionately to our packing houses and other food production facilities. And so our recommendation there is that those facilities really look at those enhanced protective measures such as requiring face masks, gloves, and looking at, you know, kind of their protocols for managing sanitization, because it is really, really difficult when people are in a close proximity, production, touching a lot of services, moving stuff along to the next level. It's very, very hard to mitigate that disease spread in those environments, and that's where we're having the biggest types of outbreaks. So briefly, our CalMat team, all CalMat teams have demobilized. At this point, staffing is stable at the skilled nursing facilities, so we, again, consider that a positive trend. If we start to see that tick upwards again, we do have the Medical Reserve Corps that we currently have 229 volunteers from licensed medical, non-medical, and students that we can work to help bring in and offset. And then the state has also allocated us 318 vials of remdesivir, and that's, it's been shown to, through clinical trials, to reduce the median recovery time for our COVID positive patients. It's a broad spectrum antiviral medication. Hadn't necessarily heard of it before because it hadn't been approved for directly treating. They'd, I think, developed it to try and treat hepatitis, but then they'd also been looking at it for some of the SARS-related illnesses, and it's shown some promise. So there's a limited supply, unfortunately, because it hasn't been in production, or at least mass production. So right now, the feds and the state are rationing that based on populations. Our allotment was 318 at this point. That was divided between Cuya Delta and Sierra View to continue to do criteria for the patients that should be receiving the medication.
Jim, what is the protocol for that and the indications?
You know,
Yeah.
that's far enough outside of my knowledge area that I'll be dangerous if I answer that question. I would be happy to ask Dr. Hott to provide that information, and I can send it over.
My question is regarding why it was just Cuya Delta and Sierra View. Was Adventist and Tulare not considered for an allocation?
They don't have any COVID positive patients. They're moving all of their COVID positives to the Hanford location.
Okay.
So that was the only reason that Tulare Adventist was excluded from it. If they had COVID positives, they would have been included, and if that changes, they will be on subsequent allocations.
Thank you.
And then ACS planning, still have our tabletop exercise on this Thursday with hospitals and our FEP coordination. That's, we're happy to be getting that going in case we do need to staff up an alternative care site. And then just briefly, I know this is taking a little longer than normal, and I apologize. It's just a lot of catch up from 2 weeks. Our total cost to date for incident as of May 28th, $1,686,000, and that includes about $31,000 in that extraneous overtime costs. We also, as you know today, we're continuing to find additional grants and opportunities to provide service delivery. Today's board item with the request for The approval of a contract from HRSA to do testing is one such example where we're continuing to identify opportunities to enhance our services. And then our homeless coordination team continues to work on with street medicine and Kings Tulare Homeless Alliance to do outreach at various homeless encampments. On the 22nd, they did one at St. John's. Then on this Friday, they're going to be over at City of Tulare, again, trying to do surveillance. The good news is our St. John's, we did 30 tests, and all of them came back negative for COVID. So that was a definite positive piece in terms of if we're relocating any of our homeless population, we're not introducing new spread into our communities. So we're hoping to see a positive result also with our Tulare surveillance this week. And Project Room Key is currently serving 65 individuals at our various locations. Now, I did want to kind of highlight a success story. We've had our food operations team and their continued work with FoodLink. That team sent a letter to Tulare County Ag Commissioner Office asking for assistance in establishing a partnership with packing houses and facilities to provide produce. The goal here is to keep that partnership going beyond COVID, and FoodLink has expressed an interest in using state funds they received to purchase some of that produce from local farmers. I think it's a great opportunity for us to fill that void where we've had supply and demand issues and logistical supply chain upsets, and try and step in and see how we can help our local industry as well. And then FoodLink is also going to be hiring, it looks like, 2 of the CSET youth who were placed there through the program to assist them. So again, nice to see positive outcomes from a lot of the stuff going on. You know, again, I think there's a lot of updates over the last 2 weeks, but I think that encapsulates the bulk of them. I'll be happy to answer questions.
All right, Supervisor Valero?
Yes. Quick question, and I know you've alluded to this already, but I know that there are contact tracer employment opportunities, and wondering if you can just fill us in how that's going and kind of the numbers and yeah.
Absolutely, yes. In my haste, I didn't note that piece, and I will say in terms of our contact tracing levels, so we were able to bring in internally, actually, 33 staff from various branches to do the contact tracing training. And then we've been rolling those into our operations. Right now, we actually have approximately 60 staff doing contact tracing. When we started this conversation, I think we were about, we started about 19, 20, and went up to 35. Now we're at 60. That's a temporary measure. Our long-term strategy is going to be just as you suggest, Supervisor, working with WIB, HR&D to hire extra help, contact tracers that can fulfill that need, but have a little more flexibility in their hours, and then we can return these staff to their normal job functions.
Thank you.
All right, Supervisor Crocker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a few questions on the new drug vial. If you're checking on information, I'd be curious to see how many patients can be treated with that allocation, what that looks like.
So it's changed a little bit. Initially on the clinical trials, I think that 10 vials was, I think, what the original dosage was, because it was a 10-day therapy. Okay. I think as they've now done more trials, they're seeing an improvement with 5 days, so they're kind of recommending to cut it in half, but then continue to see the quicker recovery time. So right now, I think it's about 5 doses per person, so 318 divided by 5.
Okay. And you talked about the Porterville Developmental Center. Do we have a contract signed? I know that it looks like we're that, you know, it's still, all the equipment's still there, you know, the state's gonna reevaluate it in a few weeks possibly, but
So yes, that one continues to be a little bit of a sore spot for us because we know the work was done. We know that it's counted in terms of one of our alternative care sites. We have concern because we are still being told 48 to 96 hours to actually go to a live status, and that's a big window. And so we're continuing to ask for more information. I think we look at what the state's been doing with Imperial and some of their alternative care sites. The Hospital Association put out a request to basically move 180 patients from Southern California to various hospitals with capacity. So it would appear at least that the state is taking the approach of fill hospital capacity beds across the state before they invest heavily in any of the alternative care sites to actually open up.
okay. And then, has there been any guidance provided following the governor's comments on Friday about counties basically have the authority and can do what they want as far as phase 3?
So yes, I can say the calls Friday afternoon were quite contentious with public health and CDPH, in part because the governor's message was completely off point with reality. And so the situation that the state is trying to explain to us, and I will say a lot of us have said, well, it still doesn't quite make sense, but we're trying to read the tea leaves. So because hairdressers and barbershops were included now in various counties, the state is pretty firm that that is early stage 3. The concerning point for us was we were told repeatedly from staff that all counties would move to stage 3 together, and that's counter to what was originally said. So that created some confusion, and it also opens up the question of, well, now if we're in stage 3, what about all those other stage 3 businesses? So what the administration landed on is, yes, those industries in stage 3 would be allowed to open at the time that, one, the state posts the guidance for those to their website. So that's the first trigger of the state has approved it, they've put the guidance on their website. And even more confusing, you have to go to 2 places on their website. One, the roadmap, but then on the county variance attestation page, those are the industries that are allowable in variance counties only. So we have to wait for industry guidance to post on that website, and then if public health then gives approval once it's posted on the website. But until it's on that website, public health cannot grant permission to open those industries. It has to wait for the state still. So yes, counties, what he was trying to message is as they roll out more industries, counties can basically stay where they're at, or they can choose to go along faster if they want, but they still can't go ahead of the state in terms of the guidance. So I hope that clarifies it. I recognize it was a very muddied discussion and caused a lot of confusion across the state.
The governor said it's up to the counties, so that's what I heard.
Yes. And I can state, and I even have the letter from the state public health officer reaffirming that we are not allowed to open industries outside of what's posted on the website.
Thank you.
All right, Supervisor Shuckling?
Yeah, Tim, I just want to say I saw you and Karen and Nilsa last night speaking to Visalia City Council during their work session. I thought that was very good and very informative, so thank you for that. Are you speaking with other city councils within the county also?
If they request, we did Tulare,'s. Karen and I did a few weeks ago, and then Visalia reached out. So if the cities reach out, we're not promoting on tour, but if the cities ask, we'll be happy to participate.
Only 6 more to go, so I would encourage the cities to do that because we are trying to work in partnership with them So I encourage them to do so. Sorry, Tim.
That's all right. No, honestly, I do appreciate the opportunity. I think it's good to hear the feedback from the cities directly. I know Karen and I hear a lot of it from the city managers that the CAO lets us participate in, but I think it's also good to understand from the council's point of view and answer their questions. Yes.
And Tim, I'll just wrap things up by just saying thank you again. I know this is really drawn out for a long time, and as the conditions change, whether it's from state guidance or state relaxation of guidance, I know that it's still very trying on your staff, and you've got a lot of people that are very committed to advancing Tulare County and keeping the public health and well-being safe. So I thank you for that, and please do pass on our thanks to the rest of your team. Because we are very thankful for the work that they do.
Well, thank you. I know a lot of them listen, so I know they appreciate the words. Thank you.
Well, thank you. All right, now we will move on and take up item 3, which is public comment. At this time, I have a request from Pamela Silva. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Reminder, public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker.
Good morning. My name is Pamela Silva. I'm from Visalia, California. I'm in Amy's district. When all this was going down with the cities and the letters being sent and it being posted online with KMPH, the letters from the cities, Tulare and Visalia. Okay, I'm short. Sorry. The letters, you all know what I'm talking about? Okay. So I had called and I'd emailed Amy, and I guess you guys were very busy. But my question is why are we fighting with the city? Why is the city fighting with us? You guys do need to work with the cities. And I did have an email back and forth with city manager of Visalia. But just to clear things up, how are things going? Are you guys now working together? I know you can't answer me, but where's my notes? So I just want to say that, when man is controlling over man, in other words, like I told Amy, I said, in God we trust, because our inalienable rights, that's where we get our rights to protect ourselves. That's where we get our right to free speech, all of that. That needs to be remembered. And every time we open this up, that no man has the right to lord over anybody else. And I feel like that's what's being done right now, as we're being targeted in the Central Valley. And I have questions for him about that, and I'll ask the questions, and I'll get back to you later, Amy, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have a request from Abigail Solis.
Good morning. My name is Abigail Solis. I'm a lifelong resident of Tulare County, and I serve as the president of the Early March School District Board of Trustees. I'm here to share my concern with recent statements made by the Tulare County Sheriff Mike Boudreau, and to ask that this Tulare County Board of Supervisors partner with us as your constituents to develop accountability and oversight measures that are currently non-existent in Tulare County. This is a difficult time for many of us. It is especially difficult for people of color that have suffered from the injustice of racism and bigotry for far too long. During a time when people are angry and hurting, our leaders should use their voice and their platforms to unite us, to remind us that we have much more in common than we have differences. They should listen to us with an open heart and an open mind so that one day we can truly understand and accept each other. To do this, we need our elected officials to not use divisive rhetoric that stirs anger and fear. As you know, on Saturday, the sheriff made public comments that sparked outrage across Tulare County and beyond. Not only were his statements inappropriate and unprofessional, they were completely unnecessary. The sheriff is elected to represent the entire county, yet he regularly uses his social media platforms to issue statements for political gain from his base of supporters. Although it's been tough to deal with recent events, I am encouraged by great examples of leadership that we have seen from the police and sheriff across the county and locally from the Visalia police chief. We watched some officers walk in solidarity alongside protesters and publicly denounce racism and police brutality. Tulare County, too, deserves this kind of leadership from its sheriff. The sheriff's comments demonstrate his ignorance towards issues of race and racism and his obvious disconnect with the community. Yet I remain hopeful that we can work together to change that and to prioritize public safety for us all. But this will only happen if we can accept our mistakes, commit to doing better, and establish accountability measures. I am here to formally ask the Tulare County Board of Supervisors to support the development of a Citizens Oversight Committee for the Sheriff's Department. For you to personally hold town halls that create dialogue around racism, discrimination, and other public safety concerns. And lastly, that you are vigilant of the sheriff's messaging and that you hold him to a higher standard that align with the values of this board. I look forward to your response and to continued dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next request I have is from Diego Paniagua.
Good morning, everyone. How's stay at home going? It's kind of boring for me. My name is Diego. I come from Rich Grove. I think one of you is supposed to be representing our community. I just want to mention and start off that Tulare County still leads the valley in COVID-19 cases and deaths. A prayer goes out to the 5 residents that died yesterday due to COVID-19 and 53 other that tested positive. My comment today is with the hope of seeing some accountability and to push for the development of an oversight committee for our Sheriff's Department. A couple weeks ago, the Porterville Recorder interviewed Sheriff Bordeaux. In that interview, he mentions that he believes that the COVID-19 pandemic is just a way for political agendas to be implemented. He goes to say that he is more interested in rearresting criminals than enforcing stay-at-home orders. 1 week later, Sheriff Bordeaux decides again to head to Twitter, where he writes, "I will not enforce stay-at-home orders." He goes ahead and closes the tweet with, "Marijuana stores open, but churches closed. Doesn't add up. Enjoy your First Amendment." He said this during a time when Tulare County had the 8th most COVID-19 deaths in the state. He said this when it was his duty to make sure that the people were safe. The Marshall Project, a nonpartisan news organization, is following this national trend. They are seeing how the White House and other positions of authority are weaponizing the COVID-19 pandemic with partisan political gains. Sheriff Bordeaux is identified as one of 60 sheriffs across the nation that are following this trend. A good sheriff, a nonpartisan sheriff, needs to have a central role in issues around public health and economic recovery. Instead, one of our sheriffs is causing disunity, and when asked to by the state, he chose to refuse to keep the public safe. In these past few years, Sheriff Bordeaux has given his position on immigration laws, and in 2015, he was present in full uniform at a speaking engagement where a white supremacist and an anti-gay figure gave a keynote address. Sheriff Bordeaux is in a county elected position. He does not get to play politics and act as a judge when he is a sheriff. In his most recent tweet, he perfectly highlighted that. Our community is in need of unity and a response that makes sense. I ask you that you realize that the country is watching. Don't let the country believe that Tulare County law officers are allowed to openly discriminate and to fight state laws and their superiors. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, I have a request from Rosanai Paniagua.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rosanai Paniagua, resident of Rich Grove, California. I'm here to voice my concern on the comments said by the Tulare County Sheriff. As a member of law enforcement in our community, you do not get to pick and choose who you want to help. A sheriff has a duty to protect all of us and to respond to any of us when we are in need of help. We are all seeing how the president is hiding behind cryptic comments and creating more chaos during a time of peace and understanding. The post that Sheriff Bordeaux tweeted should be unacceptable. As a resident of this county, I don't accept his apology. I can't accept his apology. Silence is complicity, and if this board chooses silence, then you too are responsible. You too will lose trust in your community. As a Board of Supervisors, your silence is violence, and we demand that you hold law enforcement accountable. Law enforcement is not above the law and should not. People are over the country, all over the country, are trying to imagine a different society, a society where we expect better from our elected officials and our law enforcement. When will you expect better? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next request is from Yolanda Flores.
Hello, good morning. I'm going to start my statement here with the tweet from Sheriff Boudreaux. For all those people who are hating cops across this nation, just leave your name and address at your local police agency and let them know whenever you dial 911 or need emergency police services, you no longer wish for them to respond to your calls for help. As a public official, this cannot be the common way to speak. I am an elected official from the city of Lindsay. I'm speaking today with my own opinions, of course, because I am only one of 5. I cannot believe that he would be able to send a hateful and insulting tweet that was posted by him. I understand that police officers go through many challenges, and I, like most, truly respect the good officers and everything that they do to protect us. I read the tweets, all of the tweets, because they sent them to me through Messenger, through Facebook. According to my sources, it went viral throughout the country. So now the whole country knows that Tulare County, the sheriff that represents the people, is really not doing his job as a public servant. He issued a video in which he apologizes, and he states that it was out of context. This is in black and white, it's in writing. It'll be forever in our minds. It will not be forgotten, and it's going to be a part of his legacy. The rights of the people to protest the injustices that have been happening throughout our county against minorities, especially our Black communities. Black lives matter, more so now than ever before, because of the cruelty and continued disregard of their rights and of their lives. I am encouraging leadership, empathy, calm, and engagement with our communities. Gaslighting only incites division, and it should not be acceptable for any of us to speak in that manner. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a request from Raul Gonzalez.
Good morning. My name is Raul Gonzalez. I'm an educator here in Visalia, California. And I go around the state educating teachers. And we educate teachers on students with anger. And I found it fitting with the comments that were being made before me that we kind of look at human nature and how we're soft-wired to show sociability, attachment, companionship, and kindness. We all share a common bond, and we all have one life to live, and we show that through our solidarity in that. Solidarity, excuse me. You know, as officers, there's a duty and almost it's a duty to build community. They are our leaders out in the spaces where a lot of the trauma and a lot of the hardships of life happen. You know, to empathize is to civilize. Because if we don't do that, then we regress to the second drives, which is narcissism, materialism, violence, and aggression. We must understand that it can't be us versus them. That's the very definition of implicit bias. We must lead by example and not by force. We must learn and find ways to empower our officers and our community members to show empathy, to show compassion, to model solidarity, to build community, because after all, it's a social contract that we have, not with the laws and being law-abiding, but it's a social contract between the citizens of our community. We must show that there's trauma that's impacting these situations, not only in the citizens, but also in the officers, because we have to realize that there's also a lot of hardship in the job that's being done as officers. We must be aware of cultural differences, and cultural competency must be a must for officers that are engaging community members. The goal should always be de-escalation. One of the things that I teach my colleagues when I do trainings across the state is that there's 3 aspects of communication. Body language, which makes up 58%, your tone, which makes up 38%, and the words only make up 7%. When we encounter a situation where we use the wrong body language and the wrong tone with a person that's already traumatized, that's already escalated, it's not going to help the situation. It's going to lead to an escalation rather than de-escalation. Our officers must be experts in de-escalation. Again, we put this duty upon our officers, and it's a tough challenge for them. I know they're dealing with a lot, but I think after all, we have to build that trust, because it's about the trust. It's about those relationships. It's about that solidarity, and it's about building that community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I have a request from Euler Torres.
Hello, County Supervisors. My name is Euler Torres. I am the president of LULAC, which is the League of United Latin American Citizens. We are a national organization. We have over 1,000 councils all across the country and Puerto Rico. My area covers from Bakersfield all the way up to Modesto, and we're creating more councils here in the county, and Fresno, Kings, and Kern. And the reason I am here, I just barely found out about the thing with the sheriff, so I can't make a comment about that right now without being prepared. But what I do want to talk about is the incident that happened with the Jeep in the city of Visalia. I'm aware that the DA works for the Tulare County. And what my concern is, I was driving down on Mooney with my daughter, and I saw that Jeep headed towards that demonstration. We all live in this county, and we know what certain things can be weaponized if we want them to. And these kids, that's what they did. They tried to create a riot and a ruckus, and they did. And we just want to hold them accountable. I love my county. I love my city. I've had disagreements with a lot of organizations and people in this area, but that does not change my view of our community. We all live together. We need to work together. And I really do not want to bring national attention for something so small. So I would ask the district attorney to take action, because right now it's where people are looking for social media, social tags, and all this stuff. Our county needs to be protected by all of us. We don't need, I understand the frustration. Some of you guys saw my post. I traveled across the country 2 weeks ago, right before what happened in Minneapolis. And the reason that we were traveling is we saw what COVID did to our communities, to small businesses, and especially to the Hispanic community. We were the most affected and the one with the least resources across the nation. So I traveled to Texas, to New York, and to different states just to start organizing our community, and we did. We are organizing everyone. We have a campaign called Todos o Nada, which means all or nothing. If we want change, we all need to be together. And that's what our next campaign is for LULAC. It's going to be a national campaign. I'm going to reach out to all of you guys, because if I want to ask for change, I need the cooperation of everyone that's in this room. And unfortunately, I have friends of mine that are law enforcement, but there are things that need to change. I was driving through Pennsylvania with my daughter and with my father. But a police officer saw me, and he decided that I was a threat for some reason, and he pulled me over for no reason. Pulled me out of my vehicle for no reason. But for me, I'm already used to it because I was a traveling musician. I've been pulled over in every state that I have visited. Why? Maybe I have a very likable face. I don't know. But whatever that reason may be, things need to change. Some people react differently. I got used to it, just follow along. Some people, have their different approach, and things happen. What I do ask is the district attorney to look into this issue with the Jeep, and also the statement of the police chief of Visalia. I spoke with the family members of the two people that were hit with that Jeep, and that's very inaccurate information that was given out. So I already reached out. I have not heard from the police department, and we're out there. We're LULAC. So all that aside, I haven't had the chance and opportunity to thank Tulare County for supporting our music program. So we did start a music program, and I really thank you guys for that support. And like I said, we're all here in this together. I see some people that were in the back shaking their heads. I hope they come up and speak, because I do want to hear what's in their mind and in their heart, because if we don't hear what they're saying and they're just shaking their heads with no, 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 when hear other people who they may disagree with, then how are we going to move forward if we don't hear those conversations? So if you're in the back and you were shaking your head earlier, please come up. I want to hear. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, I have a request from Alex Gutierrez.
Thank you, Board of Supervisors, our CEO, County Council, and staff. My name is Alex. I'll start off by saying that I did watch our county sheriff's attempt of an apology yesterday, and truly I was not satisfied by it. This has been a buildup for me, having following the sheriff on Twitter for quite some time now. The sheriff's Twitter is a year long, and it's finally reached a breaking point. Now he has made it private. Although it is private, he still states he's an elected California sheriff. I have asked some of you to please rein him in, but here are a couple of other examples of his tweets. A COVID-19 conspiracy theory by InfoWars was shared by the county sheriff, talking about coronavirus being created in a lab in China and saying, quote, "The truth will come out and people will be held accountable," close quote. That was by Michael Boudreau on April 30th. Now we're here today during a nationwide protest of law enforcement's systemic problems, and he tweets out a divisive tweet with words that to me have not really been addressed. And we come to you all as our County Board of Supervisors, as leaders and controllers of his budget, to please hold him accountable. As the head of law enforcement in the rural unincorporated areas where many undocumented people live who are hired and work for agricultural employers, this has brought me here today, again, to implore you to please remember your own individual power. You have voices too. And I cannot state please for you all to work on some of the ideas that have been brought before you, to please, if not, to take a public stand for the people of this county, so they can continue to have trust in our government institutions. His tweet was on Saturday, the 30th of May. Number two, again, he needs to be held accountable for all of this build-up rhetoric through our democratic processes. I have a lot more to say on this point, but again, I will afford the opportunity to help us reach a solution to this, because all of our emotions are high. To be empathetic to the voices screaming their frustrations in the community should be paramount to you all. On a separate note, just to minimize that, I do want to bring up the district attorney's largest case that's been going on for quite some time, which has invested a lot of money on the situation that happened in our community of Tulare. I want to remind you, Board of Supervisors, that this is an ongoing case involving HCCA, Yorai Benzivi, Dr. Parmat Kumar's recall election, and it's almost going to be 3 years in July. Just a friendly reminder that the New Yorker did write an article in February of 2019, and a miniature book by Scott Stedman has came out already, and we all are patiently awaiting justice to what happened in our community in Tulare. I have faith in our local DA and his department and his staff. And please, if you feel the need to encourage him to reach out to the California Attorney General or to the FBI or whoever, please encourage him to do so. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next, I have a request from Vincent Salinas.
Kind of hard to speak through this. Good morning, Chairman Vanderpool, board members, staff, and also the audience. My name is Vincent Salinas. I am the chairman of the Latino Political Action Committee of Tulare County. We have joined the Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability, Community Water Center, and several other organizations in an email sent to the Board of Supervisors on May 26, 2020. The email addresses our concern regarding the action taken by the Tulare County Board of Supervisors on May 19, 2020, under agenda item number 2, update health and human services agencies. I have a copy of the email and a copy of the agenda that you all have. But this one's for the record. The email specifically referenced to the action taken by the board that violated the Brown Act. Specifically, the audio recording of May 19's meeting provided clear evidence that County Council twice advised the board that it would be a Brown Act violation to discuss and take action on an item that was not properly agendized. Supervisor Valero asked that you go into closed session for discussion, all before a second of the motion made by Crocker, and then Chairman Vanderpool called for the vote. Secondly, in the email request that Tulare County Board of Supervisors rectify the violation within 30 days as provided in the Brown Act. The board should consult with community leaders at a public meeting and actions to protect Tulare County. Thank you for the opportunity to bring this email and the contents to you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And next I have a request from Celine Maldonado Arroyo. Celia. I couldn't read the writing, I'm sorry. Celia.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors, County Council. Yes, my name is Celia Maldonado Arroyo. I live in Kingsburg. I am a member of the County Board of Education, but I am here representing myself, not the County Board. And I just wanted to comment about Sheriff's comments, as have been mentioned earlier, with regard to his Twitter. Words do matter. And it's very concerning to me that our sheriff would make comments that are, in essence, threatening, or threatening to not protect the citizens equally. And I'm afraid that when you say things or you write things, they really do reflect what's in your mind and your heart. And it's really hard to take them back after they're out there. The sheriff is elected to protect all citizens, especially those in small rural communities. And so it's very disturbing that that is the attitude that he had. Protesting doesn't mean that you hate the police, in any case, anyway. Protesting is that you're wanting to be heard for things that are happening. No one can deny that Black and brown people are treated differently by the criminal justice system, and that is the issue that is at hand. And so we're asking that everyone be treated equally under the law. I understand that there is a recommendation for an oversight committee, and I approve this idea. I think it's important to have open and honest communication between the citizens and law enforcement, and I hope that you will take that recommendation seriously. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I have a request from Lucy Hernandez.
Good morning to all of you. My name is Lucy Hernandez, and I come from the West Goshen community. I'm here to speak a little bit about the sheriff comment, and that was very disturbing, and it's concerning to my community, which my community had been in trouble for years, having a bad relationship with the sheriff department, and that really hurt our community, and not just our community, but most of our surrounding communities, because we had a bad relationship with the sheriff department. So it took years for us to start having a really good conversation with the sheriff department, which we are coming to have a better relationship with them. And for them to come up, for Sheriff Mike Boudreau to come with this comment that it was unnecessary, and that's more like ammunition to some folks here in the community, that was unacceptable. We could do better. Tulare County could do a lot better, and we could work with the relationships, really good relationships, not just with the sheriff department, but with the police department and most of our elected officials, which we don't have a problem. And we don't think that all sheriffs are bad, and we don't think that all police officers are bad. There is a way to communicate with the residents. And that comment was part of the problem. We need to work with a solution. We cannot be part of the problem. Tulare County could do better than that. And I would like for a sheriff to ensure that they will respond to our calls, that we don't have to agree all the time. We could disagree, and it's okay to disagree. We could deal with that, and we could work together. And working together makes a big difference for our communities. Me as a community of residents of color, we had a lot of problems, and we are dealing a lot with the COVID-19. Our families are in a lot of pain right now, and this is the last thing that our community needs. We could work together and give us the opportunity. And I want him, like I said, to reassure that his department will respond to our calls. And I do think that it would be a good idea to have a citizens oversight the sheriff department. I mean, if there is nothing to hide, why not? You know, we could work together, and let's work on something better to better our situations for our residents, and let's work for our residents. And as elected officials, we expect better than that. And thank you so much.
Thank you. That concludes the public comments I have written requests for. Madam Clerk, do we have public comment requests on the phone?
We do.
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring those in. Under Sheriff, we're taking phone public comments that have been submitted requests first already.
Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Hello?
Hi.
Yes. My name is Stephanie, and I'm a Tulare County resident.
Go ahead.
Hello, and good morning, and thank you for accepting the phone calls today. I share the sentiment of the many callers before me, and I hope the many callers after me. I am calling because I'm disappointed is not a word to describe how I feel about the words and comments that Sheriff Boudreau made this past weekend, stating, for all those people who are hating cops across this nation, just leave your name and address at your local police agency and let them know whenever you dial 911 or need emergency police services, you no longer wish for them to respond to your calls for help. There's no taking those words out of context. There's no other way to read it than how it exactly sounded to you and how it sounded to me. It's full of hate and divisiveness. If you're not disappointed, then you need to think about your role as a Board of Supervisor for Tulare County. I would like to say that the Board of Supervisor did issue an apology, but it was one that was filled with excuses. An apology is one without excuses. Let me also say that how to be an anti-racist is to start by educating yourself. When you see racism, you say something, and you stop supporting organizations that promote hate. I don't know how to stop supporting the sheriff's department, as They are here to serve and protect all citizens in Tulare County, regardless on their beliefs and their color. I do not want to be the county that allows Jeeps to run into people and not be prosecuted. I do not want to be the county that sits silently when a sheriff blatantly makes racist and divisive remarks regularly. For those of you who are Christian and maybe don't understand the Black Lives Matter feeling without needing to respond with all lives matter, cops' lives matter, I want you to open your Bible if you have it. And if you don't, like the president did, look up Luke 15. I'm going to summarize it for you. There are 100 sheep, but one goes missing. Jesus leaves the 99 and goes after the one. The 99, they say, but what about us? Don't we matter? Of course the 99 still matter, but they're not the ones in danger. This one is. So I'll say it again. Black lives matter, and we need elected officials to represent that and to only speak to that. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Next, Madam Clerk.
Yes. Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Hi, my name is Karina, and I'm from Visalia, and I'm calling in support of the 2 young women who were intentionally attacked by white supremacists at the Saturday's Black Lives Matter protest that was taking place on Mooney and Caldwell. And I also want to acknowledge that the inaccurate and racist statements recently made by the VPD, Visalia Chief, and the Tulare County Sheriff are clear examples of white supremacy, and they are inciting violence to our community. And so as the Board of Supervisors, your silence is violence, and we demand for you to hold them accountable and make sure that the district attorney arrest, charge, and prosecute the 3 white supremacists who attacked young protesters on Saturday. And we will continue to support our young and youth protesters who are standing up for Black Lives Matter until this is done, and make sure that we are defunding the police in our community and that we're actually investing in our young folks and actually things that we need in our community that help us thrive.
Next public comment, Madam Clerk.
Yes, we'll take the next one. Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Yeah, my name is Daniel Peñalosa, and my address is 1776 West Olive Avenue, Porterville, California. Good morning, Tulare County Board Chair and Supervisors. My name is Daniel Peñalosa, Tulare County resident, and a Porterville City Council member representative for District 1. The murder of George Floyd is yet another death that sheds light on the institutional racism that is practiced in law enforcement. The fact that protests are unfolding across the nation shows the anger and the frustration that is felt by millions because of the continual murders of Black and brown people. Leadership, action, and unity is paramount in these moments. When I saw the message that Sheriff Mike Boudreau shared on his social media platform, I was appalled and disappointed. The sheriff has an obligation to serve and protect all the residents of Tulare County. Yesterday, the sheriff shared a video offering an apology, but the damage has already been done, and an apology is not enough. Words do matter, especially from elected officials that serve the people. Words have the power to unite, empower, support, and uplift. Words can also be divisive, cause pain, and be destructive. Unfortunately, the comments made by Sheriff Mike Boudreau are not representative of the values of respect, community, and unity. His comments were uncalled for. I strongly believe that the sheriff could have used his words in a much positive manner. Lastly, I would like to offer 2 recommendations moving forward to the Tulare County Board. Develop a sheriff oversight committee that includes the voices of the marginalized communities in our county, and that each Board of Supervisors hosts public safety town hall meetings that are inclusive to the Spanish-speaking community by providing translation. More than ever, we must build bridges of trust with the community. Divisive rhetoric does not uplift our communities. I hope that we can continue to have a dialogue around this and continue to do our best to represent the communities we serve. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take the next one.
Okay.
Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Sarah Hutchinson. I'm calling to address the racist remarks and inactions by law enforcement and in support of the 2 young people who were intentionally run into by 3 adults in a Jeep with racist flags at Saturday's Black Lives Matter protest. Visalia PD has refused to make arrests, and their pending report has inaccuracies. The utter lack of accountability and protection of white supremacists who intentionally attacked young people of color is egregious, and very honestly, it is a grand example of how our police system is steeped in racism, upholds white supremacy, and is designed to harm Black, Indigenous, and people of color. I urge the Board of Supervisors to no longer stand in silence and demand that our sheriff, our district attorney, and the Visalia PD work for our people and hold each other accountable. We urge you to condemn the racist remarks, actions, and inactions by VPD, the DA, and the sheriff. Their inactions and protections of white folks over people of color incites violence. It has since the inception of the police force, and it will continue until we are brave enough to defund and dismantle white supremacist institutions. Not saying or doing anything is an act itself, and it stirs further violence. We urge you to put pressure on the DA and VPD to take action. If any supervisors or Board of Supervisors staff are interested or have questions about white privilege or how white supremacy permeates our governments and daily behaviors, I can send information along to your staff for an opportunity to discuss and learn together. Thank you.
Next, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Next. Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Hello, my name is Michelle, and I'm from Dinuba. I'm calling in support of the 2 young women who were intentionally attacked by white supremacists at the Saturday's Black Lives Matter protest. As a witness, I have seen that the perpetrators came to ignite fear and to those that take a stance against racism and police brutality. By them not being held accountable, it sends a message locally and nationally that it is okay to harm our Black and brown community. The inaccurate statements recently made by the Visalia Police Department, the police chief, and the Tulare County Sheriff are clear examples of divisive rhetoric that continue to uphold white supremacy and ignite violence into our community. As the Board of Supervisors, it is your responsibility to hold them accountable and to ensure that they do get prosecuted for the violent attacks they have done as well. I am also in full support for the development of the Citizens Oversight Committee to oversee the Sheriff's Department, to ensure the safety of all and the well-being of all members of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Public comment, Madam Clerk.
Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Katie Wagner. I live in Visalia in Amy's district, and I'm also the chair of a local group called PUSH that represents the community. I want to comment on Sheriff Boudreau's tweet. Being a public servant is about serving the people that you've sworn to protect, and I think his comment about not protecting people is absurd. If a doctor were to say, oh, this patient came into the hospital, but I don't like this guy and he doesn't like me, I'm not going to treat him, of course that would be unacceptable. If a teacher said, this student doesn't like me, so I'm not going to teach them anymore, that would be unacceptable. If a bridge builder said, oh, well, I don't like this person, so they can't drive over this part of the bridge and they have to drive through a river, that would be unacceptable. And we need to hold our elected sheriff to higher standards. It's not about being liked, not about being popular, it's about doing your job. So I, along with many others, are calling for a Sheriff's Accountability and Oversight Committee. And I also want to bring attention to the fact that Visalia PD needs to act and bring charges to the 2 white supremacists who mowed down 2 women. One who was a 17-year-old girl and has talked about the pain that she's been in since then. This was this weekend, and the day earlier, the same thing happened in Bakersfield, and police immediately arrested that person and charged him with attempted murder. It's very clear what happened. People have seen it. There are witnesses. And our own neighbors right here in Bakersfield were able to act and see it for what it was. This lack of action makes me wonder if Visalia PD feels the same way as Sheriff Boudreau does, if this is a common sentiment in our local law force, and that's absolutely unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Hello, my name is Char, and I work in Visalia. I'm calling to demand you support the 2 young people who were violently hurt by white supremacists Saturday during the Black Lives Matter protest. It has been 3 days since that happened, and none of you has addressed the violence nor denounced white supremacy. We are all watching you, and your silence speaks volumes. The inaccurate and racist statements recently made by the VPD and the police chief and the Tulare County Sheriff, Mike Bureau, are clear examples of white supremacy and inciting violence onto our community. As the Board of Supervisors, your silence is a violence, and we demand for you to hold the VPD, the sheriff, and the district attorney accountable and demand for the arrest, charge, and prosecution of the 3 white supremacists who attacked prosecutors. Again, you all have not denounced white supremacy, and we demand that as a bare minimum from the people that you are supposed to represent and protect.
Thank you. Next. Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Hi, my name is Marisela Sanchez. I'm a former resident of Dinuba, California, now living in Fresno, but I am calling in support of the 2 young women who were intentionally attacked by white supremacists at this past Saturday's Black Lives Matter protest. I truly hope that you all really consider all of the public comments and the concerns that folks have shared with you regarding this incident, just because of how incredibly dangerous this incident is. And we just truly hope that you utilize the power that you have and your voice to do something about this, to specifically call for the arrest, the charge, and the persecution, or the prosecution, excuse me, of these individuals just because of the fact that, I mean, this is shocking that this has happened in Tulare County. Young folks were out practicing their First Amendment rights to protest and were met with violence at the hands of these white supremacists. This is seriously just, it's wild to think that this happened in Tulare County, and I truly hope that you do something about this by just calling out or holding the Visalia Police Department accountable, Police Chief Salazar, also Tulare County Sheriff Mike Boudreau, and his comments about this entire incident. The fact that no one is doing anything about this is just a clear example of white supremacy and inciting violence into this community. And that is something that you should be blatantly speaking out against. And your inaction, your silence about this is deafening. So please do something about this. You should be serving the constituents who put you there in that position. And that includes the folks who were hit by a vehicle on Saturday just for simply practicing their constitutional right to protest. Do note that we will be keeping an eye on this, and we will remember if you do not decide to do anything about this incident. Please do something. This is, I don't think you realize how incredibly dangerous that incident was, and just the message that it could send to people out in Tulare County. I truly hope you do something about this, and just know that we will keep an eye on you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now. Are you there? Hello?
Okay, now can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. This is Lucia Vasquez. I live in District 4 in Visalia. Good morning, Board of Supervisors. Thank you for your service. I'm calling today to express my gratitude. To express my gratitude to those law enforcement officers in Tulare County and nationwide who get up every day to risk their lives to serve and protect. To those officers that do their job with respect, with no unnecessary violence, and with compassion for all. These officers serve in a nonpartisan, fair, and inclusive manner, and I applaud them and I'm grateful. The Sheriff of Tulare County is an elected nonpartisan position. You have been fully apprised of his actions. You are his employer and his supervisor. He represents you. He represents Tulare County. Please create a task force to keep the Sheriff's Department accountable. Please take action. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Hello, my name is Rosa, and I'm from Visalia. I'm calling in support of the 2 young women who were intentionally attacked by white supremacists at Saturday's Black Lives Matter protest. The inaccurate and racist statement recently made by the VPD Police Chief Salazar and Tulare County Sheriff Mike are clear examples of white supremacy and inciting violence onto our community. As the Board of Supervisors, your silence is violence, and we demand for you to hold the VPD Sheriff and District Attorney accountable and demand for the arrest, charge, and prosecution of the 3 white supremacists who attacked protesters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. Hello, this is Jose Segala with the City of Tulare. I'm calling as one of the 5 elected council members in our city. I wanted to also weigh in on the latest tweet by the sheriff. It is unfortunate that our county sheriff has been thrown into the dialogue of improper law enforcement behavior by his own doing. His latest tweet, even taken out of context, just flames the distrust between law enforcement and the community in a time where we should be working together towards developing stronger bonds and relationships. His words are his words. There's no way around it. In a time where we should be working together to speak out against the grave injustice and murder of George Floyd and the pain and trust many feel about law enforcement, I, as an elected official, am willing to work with them to begin that process. I also wanted to take a moment to make it clear to the residents in the city of Tulare who may be listening that the Tulare Police Department is sworn to protect and serve everyone in our city, regardless of their race, color, legal status, and economic status, regardless of what the sheriff stated. As mayor, I will not tolerate anything less. It is my sincere hope that the sheriff takes to heart the sincere comments made today about his inappropriate and hurtful comments. No one who spoke today on this issue is a hater. They are individuals who care about their families, community, fellow neighbors, and our law enforcement sworn officers. I would hope you, as Board of Supervisors, take your role of department oversight seriously. I know that the sheriff is a separate elected official and will be held accountable in his own way, but you have a role and duty to oversee his department. I support the request to establish an oversight citizen committee and to get encourage you to hold a town hall, virtual or not, to reassure your residents that they will be protected by the fine men and women of the sheriff's department and local police departments, regardless of what their leader states. I would be glad to co-host one in Tulare with my supervisor, and I hope that you take into heart all the comments that were made today, and I appreciate and look forward to the leadership you will provide on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Hey, hello. My name is Elizabeth Nunez, and I'm from McFarland, California, at 424 Industrial Street. I am calling in support of the 2 young women who were intentionally attacked by white supremacists at Saturday's Black Lives Matter protest. The inaccurate and racist statements recently made by the VPD Police Chief Salazar and Tulare County Sheriff Mike Bird, I don't know how to say his last name, but it's Boudreaux, are clear examples of white supremacy and inciting violence onto our community. As the Board of Supervisors, your silence is violence, and we demand for you to hold the VPD, Sheriff, and District Attorney accountable and demand for the arrest, charge, and prosecution of the 3 white supremacists who attacked protesters. That's all.
Thank you. Next. Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Hello, my name is Karina, and I am from Exeter, California. The zip code is 93221, and I am calling in support of the 2 young women who were intentionally attacked by white supremacists at Saturday's Black Lives Matter protest. The inaccurate and racist statements recently made by the VPD, Police Sheriff Salazar, and Tulare County Sheriff are clear examples of white supremacy and inciting violence onto our community. As the Board of Supervisors, your silence is violence, and we demand for you to hold the VPD, sheriff, and the district attorney accountable and demand for the arrest, charge, and prosecution of the three white supremacists who attacked protesters. Thank you.
Next. Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Hello, my name is Blanca Escobedo. I'm a policy advocate for Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. The unlawful vote to reopen the county and proceed to phase 3 that the board took on May 19th has not been addressed nor remediated. This vote was a violation of the Brown Act since it was not on the agenda at the time of the vote, and it failed to take public comment on that specific language. The board is not above the law and should be held accountable to all laws applicable to public agencies. Furthermore, this vote has been taken without adequate public input and consideration from essential workers. The board also did not consider that the majority of the cases and deaths, which are 60%, have been majority Latinx, while the Latinx population in the state is 40%. This is dangerous and irresponsible as essential workers, such as farm workers, food processing workers, and other essential workers in the county are predominantly Latinx. The county needs to show that they take the public health and safety for essential workers seriously. This includes farm workers, food processing workers, healthcare workers, grocery store workers, etc., who have been putting their health at risk for the last 2.5, 3 months to address the needs of the county and the state. We request that the county publicly meets with essential and often forgotten essential workers to address their needs as the county continues to reopen and continues to provide adequate PPE, accessible testing sites near or at disadvantaged communities, and meets with facilities where there have been hotspots to address the gaps in enforcement of caution and worker protection. We also call on the county to research and meet with communities to address the economic impacts on rentals, mobile home park residents, and other residents of disadvantaged communities to estimate the number of renter households likely facing income losses due to the economic impacts of COVID-19. So please do this. We offer our full support on these actions, and we hope that the county is proactive. Thank you.
Next. Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Hello, my name is Brenda, and I am from McFarland, California. I am calling in support of the 2 young women who were intentionally attacked by white supremacists at Saturday's Black Lives Matter protest. The inaccurate and racist statements recently made by the Visalia Police Department, the Police Chief Salazar, and Tulare County Sheriff are clear examples of white supremacy and inciting violence onto our community. As the Board of Supervisors, your silence is violence, and we demand for you to hold the Visalia Police Department, the Sheriff, and the District Attorney accountable and demand for the arrest, charge, and prosecution of the 3 white supremacists who attacked protesters. The Central Valley is looking at Tulare right now. The state of California is looking at Tulare County. The entire country, the entire nation is looking at Tulare County. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Good morning. My name is Gina. I'm a resident of Tulare County, and I'm calling today to support the two young people that were attacked by white supremacists at this weekend's Black Lives Matter rally. I want to say that the recent very racist statement by the sheriff that was seen across the nation and heard to the core by every Black and brown person in this community, and the inaccurate depiction of the event that has been shared by Visalia Police Department only work to uphold racism and white supremacy. The two are inseparable. And it incites violence against our community. And community then know that violence will not be held accountable. An inadequate apology claiming, quote unquote, that the sheriff's statement was out of context does nothing to undo the harm that was already made. As the Board of Supervisors, every day of inaction is a statement aligning yourselves to upholding racism and white supremacy. Our community is under a national spotlight right now, and our county is being looked to show their leadership in addressing these issues that are deep-rooted in years of oppression. We are demanding that there be charges, arrest, and prosecution of all those who were involved in attacking our young people this weekend at the Black Lives Matter rally. We hope to see your in action soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, that concludes our phone call comments.
Do we have any additional public comments here? Sorry for that. Go ahead, Under Sheriff.
Morning, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, board members, council, CAO. I appreciate the opportunity to comment on this. I'd first like to say to everyone on this board and in the room that knows Sheriff Boudreau and knows what he stands for. He's always been the front runner in community relations. Matter of fact, most of those speaking today have been in the sheriff's office personally talking to him. Lolly, Abigail, all those have had carte blanche to the sheriff as they were both members of his spot committee, which is the sheriff's public outreach team. This team is members of the community representing African American, Hispanic, Caucasian, Eastern Indian, who have all had full access to the department, how it operates, and makes recommendations on how we can do it better. Ironically, some of those who spoke were considered friends and supporters of the sheriff and the department, yet instead of calling and clarifying his comments, they chose to spread the false political rhetoric of Greg Gomez and his political group. The sheriff is actually meeting right now with Hispanic leadership today in his office, and there's a reason that he's meeting with them. They are the real leaders of their community, representing the Hispanic community, not the ones in here spreading false racist comments. They all support Sheriff Boudreau, as does 90% of this county. This all stemmed from a conversation the sheriff was having that had absolutely nothing to do with race or race relations, and was about 3 hours prior to the incident on Mooney Boulevard. As you're aware, or if you're not, Twitter limits how many words per tweet you can put out on each tweet. Then it goes into a continual tweet. So those with their own political agendas took part of the tweet and started spreading it on social media and leaving the rest of the conversation off, particularly, and this is from the second part of that tweet, regardless of your position or belief in cops or the environment surrounding law enforcement right now, we will and always will respond and provide safety even to those who hate us. The point is, for those who wish to twist the thought, there are a bunch of good cops running to you when you need help, but the criticisms come quickly against cops as a whole group when the bad apples are few and far between. So I'm not sure where the whole racist or threats of violence that people are alleging is coming from other than their personal feelings and agendas. The sheriff, from the onset of this tragedy in Minneapolis, has condemned that behavior from law enforcement and has tried to reinforce that it is not a representation of law enforcement nationwide. The sheriff has always made it clear he supports everyone in this county, and the sheriff's office responds to every call when they come in. Ironically, not too long ago, we were being criticized for doing that because, as you know, some of the local agencies have went to online reporting for non-emergencies. However, the sheriff from day one has said, if somebody calls for a deputy, we are going to send one. Sheriff Boudreau yesterday decided to take the high road on this and issue a public apology to those who got offended by the misrepresented rhetoric people were spreading for their personal political agendas. With that said, I will close and say thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your comments on our recent deputy who passed away. I'd like to ask you all, as well as everyone in the room, to extend their thoughts and prayers to those Tulare County deputies and police officers from Exeter Police Department and Tulare Police Department that are up in Oakland right now assisting with the protest, as well as the 5 police officers nationwide who were shot last night during these riots. Thank you.
All right. I have another request from Pamela Silva. Please come forward, state your name and address. Please limit your comments. As you've spoken already, we have additional public comments on the phone.
Yes, thank you. Can everybody hear me now? Okay, I'm here to address all of the people that were here before me saying that I'm a white supremacist because I say Trump 2020, I have a hat, and I have a flag. Does that make me a white supremacist? I say no, it doesn't. It makes me an American, and it's my First Amendment right to wave these, no matter who is on the sidewalk. And second, all the scripted phone calls that just came through saying we're white supremacists if we have this and we have that, and we're on the road showing it proudly. I say no, we're not white supremacists. We are an American. And those girls that were there that got hit by that car, they were in the road trying to stop that young man that was driving, while bottles of water and you could hear chants of "fuck Donald Trump" over and over again loudly. It was an angry mob. They were attacking, and that woman actually was standing there trying to stop that Jeep from going. But no, you read online, you read the Twitter, and they're saying, no, none of that really happened. They didn't attack until after the girls were hit. Now, I've been out on the street, on the sidewalk, protesting, holding up my sign. And if somebody is on the sidewalk, I move out of the way. Somebody throws something at me, cusses at me, and they've thrown stuff at me. I say, God bless you, go on your way, leave me alone, God bless you. I don't strike back. They're free to do whatever they want. They don't bother me. That's their right. I have my rights. But I tell you what, if you go onto the street with this hat and waving a flag, you are a target from those same people that were here. Because I'll tell you right now, they say we're racist. Marie, read a tweet from you. This is what they're doing. They're targeting people, okay? This is from Big Boobs regarding Mark Boudreau. Not surprising that the Central Valley breeds insensitive fucks like this. This is the Tulare County Sheriff, and after posting this, he went private. Y'all better ring up Tulare County Police Departments right fucking now and get his
Can you please watch your language?
I'm reading, and get his white ass. I could send it to you. That's the kind of thing that Sheriff Boudreau is having to deal with. The hate and the race, you know, the little thing behind me said, oh, that stupid white guy. I'm like, I'm sorry. They're white people. Sorry. Not sorry, okay? So when they come in here and they try and tell you that I'm a white supremacist, and yet they're the ones with the racial slurs and the hate and the scripts saying this is what happened. Totally untrue, false, and I'm here to tell you. They're targeting us here because we are conservative. We do like Trump. Now, Antifa is an organized, sorry, that bothered me, is a terrorist organization. I know we have some here. I suggest we root them out.
Thank you for your comments. We do have an additional phone call. Madam Clerk?
Yes, we'll take that next. Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Sure. Hi, my name is Skylar Hernandez. I'm calling you from Exeter, California, area code 93221. I'm calling in support of the 2 young women who were intentionally attacked by a white supremacist at Saturday's Black Lives Matter protest. As an educated individual at a graduate level that has studied and researched various social justice topics and issues that we face in this country today, What is taking place in this case is not the same social justice that we have been taught across the University of California and California State University system. What I ask of you today as a Board of Supervisors, what I'm seeing is that your silence is violence, and we demand for you to hold the Visalia Police Department, Sheriff, District Attorney accountable, and demand for the arrest, charge, and prosecution of the 3 white supremacists who attacked these protesters on that day. That is the end of my statement.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take the next. Sorry, we're having issues. Sorry. Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Hello, my name is Oscar. I was there in the protest this Saturday in Visalia. I'm calling in support of the 2 young women who were intentionally attacked by white supremacists at Saturday's Black Lives Matter protest. The inaccurate and racist statements recently made by the Visalia Police Department, Police Chief Salazar, and Tulare County Sheriff Mike Woodruff are clear examples of white supremacy and inciting violence onto our community. And as the Board of Supervisors, your silence is violence, and we demand you to hold the Visalia Police Department, Sheriff, and District Attorney accountable and demand for the arrest, charge, and prosecution of the 3 attacks. Yeah. Thank you.
Next. Good morning. Thank you for holding. You're now connected to the board meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. Your 3 minutes will begin now.
Hi, my name is Kalisha Fleece. I'm from Visalia under District 3 under Amy Shuklian. And I'm calling to be a voice for those who are voiceless and to promote that and plead that there's change that happens in this county. It's imperative that you as the Board of Supervisors speak up as allies for everyone in this county, especially the people of color who need your support more now than ever. Law enforcement agencies need to be held accountable and need to be held accountable to uphold the oath and requirements of their job. As law enforcement, they are required to protect and serve everyone in the community regardless of color, not just those who align with like beliefs like them. So that means not just conservatives, not just those who may identify as white supremacists, and not those who just agree with everything that law enforcement says. Sheriff Boudreaux's comments further display and promote the division and distrust of the people, and it gives law enforcement the idea that they will not protect those who don't agree with them, and that is not what their job is. We are all aware that there has been within the media and the history of this county that there has been profiling and targeting, and those who get some preferential treatment and have privilege, and that needs to stop. They need to be able to protect and serve everyone in this county. Visalia PD's inaction or lack of action against those who were in the Jeep and hit those protesters who were just trying to exercise their First Amendment right is not okay. Had those people in the car been people of color, if we were being completely honest, they would have been arrested and charged already. Those individuals need to be. Maybe it was not right that those girls were in the street. However, any other day of the week, they would have been considered pedestrians and would have had the right of way. So there was no need for anyone in a vehicle to hit the gas and accelerate and hit a pedestrian. That needs to be held accountable. Those individuals need to be held accountable. There have been protesters across the country who have been prosecuted and taken into custody already for doing the exact same thing, and why here in Tulare County has that not been held accountable? Why is no action being taken? Why is there further investigation when there's video that shows the proof? We need our law enforcement to serve and protect everyone here, not just specific individuals. Now, a previous speaker just talked about Antifa being a terrorist organization, yet, however, we have Ku Klux Klan members here and white supremacists here in our county, and they are a terrorist organization, and why is nothing being said about them? Why are they not being talked about being uprooted out? Because they have done much more damage. The compliance of Board of Supervisors and the silence shows that you are complicit in this, and you need to take action. You need to work for everyone in this county, not just your friends, not just conservatives, not just those who have beliefs that align with yours. You are here to serve everyone, and that is what needs to happen. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that concludes public comment.
Okay. Any additional public comments from members of the audience? If not, we will move on and now take up our 9:30 timed item at 11:35. This is item number 4. It's a request from the Solid Waste Department to consider a special handling fee of $250 for each livestock carcass disposed at the Visalia landfill to take effect June 2nd, 2020.
Okay. So we're here today just to find a way to dispose of some livestock carcasses that we had a situation several months ago where our rendering plant went down for a while, and the solution at that moment was to take some of these carcasses, these cows, and compost them. So then you fast forward a little while longer, and now the rendering plant, of course, can't take that composted cow. And we looked for a solution for us to handle that internally here in Tulare County. So we got a waiver from the state of California to be able to accept those composted carcasses, cows, into our landfill at Visalia. We reached out to the local community, the ag department, and they contacted, I think, 293 dairies. We found 5 that were interested, around 20 carcasses or so. We decided to set up a single day event, basically, because it makes it sort of cost effective for us to handle that. We then went through the sort of cost recovery process, came up with $250 an animal or carcass. And so that's what we're here to ask for, is to ask for that emergency waiver to be put in place, a cost recovery fee of $250 per carcass, a event day, which would be a one-day event on Wednesday, the 24th of June. And we have an approval list already of dairies that have reached out to us and sort of approved those 5 dairies for that emergency waiver.
So, Bryce, question that I have coming from a dairy family, one thing I know is that we can never predict when the string of 100-degree plus days are going to be coming, and that does wreak havoc on a dairy farm or an animal confined facility. So I'm wondering why this is limited to one specific date and maybe not targeted to a period of time. I know we have a waiver. Maybe the waiver restricts us to one day. But I just want to make sure that we're not put in this same situation again repeatedly, knowing that we're entering into the summertime where we're likely to have numerous 100-degree plus days. It's very possible that there's a tremendous number of carcasses going to the rendering facility and putting us right back into the same position when that facility shuts down or is overwhelmed with cattle. So I just want to make sure that we're not setting ourselves up for numerous PowerPoint presentations and requests from your department to accommodate additional special days for disposal of such carcasses. I understand this is targeted retrospective, looking back at the closure of the rendering facility and accommodating those carcasses that were generated at that time. But I want to look prospectively as well, and I do know we're going to have to go through an environmental process if we establish a longer policy, but would you please give me some of your insight as to why we aren't doing a little bit more?
So first step is we reached out for this particular event. Since I think
Okay.
the county declared emergency, we were able to get that waiver from the state of California without going through the normal CEQA EIR sort of process that we'd have to go through. So that's why it's focused on what took place in that particular time period. If there were a lot more dairies, like let's say 50 or something, then we would have spread that time out.
Got it.
When we saw there was such a small number, it takes sort of a unique effort to handle those carcasses and the rest of our daily trash. So we have to sort of set up a whole separate landfilling operation for them. So the most cost-effective way to do that was to see if everybody could participate on one day. I've not got any feedback on that not being okay. If we did, then we'd certainly look to accommodate those people.
Okay.
Second, we are looking at, we have an underlying CEQA document, an EIR, that actually says we are not allowed to take carcasses. Now, we got this waiver from Cal Recycle to be able to do that. And we're looking at that underlying document to see what we can do to change that in the future. We don't propose putting up a gate price for this and just allowing this material to come whenever it wants to. We don't want to compete with the rendering plants. I don't think our pricing would compete with them anyway. But we do want to make it available to you when that emergency happens so you can make that decision instead of just going through the state of California to get that approval. So we are looking into that. That was a request from the CAO's office.
Yeah, that's helpful. Supervisor Crocker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I believe you covered some of the questions I had. So I appreciate staff bringing this before us. The industry expressed an interest and a need to try and resolve some of these carcasses, and I think this is appropriate. And so I'm very supportive of finding a longer-term solution, a permanent solution, recognizing that we don't want to compete, but just having the flexibility so we don't have to keep coming back and forth, if and when there is another issue at the rendering facility. And I know that the industry is looking at trying to make some additional adjustments at some of the, I think at the Kerman plant, that they're doing some expansions, and there's some other things that hopefully won't make it a regular occurrence. One thing I didn't see necessarily in here was primarily around our county environmental health. Did we, and you mentioned Cal Recycle, but does the Regional Water Board have a role? And if so, did they grant us any type of waiver?
We didn't need a waiver from them. We actually got it, you're correct, from the Environmental Health Department, who represents Cal Recycle.
Very good. And so then I just emphasize, and I guess this is kind of goes along with what I've already said, that I think that the process could be smoother, and so if we had that permanent process in place, I think there was a lot of discussion as far as, who's on first, who's in charge, is it Ag Commissioner, is it Environmental Health, is it Solid Waste, and so figuring that out, recognizing that, this isn't, in the last 3 years, this is the second time we've had to do this, and so I'd be very supportive of figuring out that. Thank you.
We're going to go through that process, like I said. So one thing else I should mention is that we are entering into a phase of the state of California requiring us to try and keep organics out of our landfills.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to bump up against that a little bit, but this isn't a large volume that we anticipate.
Okay, great, thank you. Supervisor Townsend? Oh, yeah.
I did have one other question that I forgot to mention. I know this was specifically to the event where we declared a local emergency. So I assume that horses would not be allowed, because that's an ongoing issue countywide as well, where there aren't any facilities, but possibly for the permanent solution would be able to.
It won't be defined as cows.
So it'll be just livestock.
Carcass, yeah.
Very good.
Okay. Supervisor Townsend?
Mr. Chair, that was my question, so you answered it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Great. Any additional questions? Public comment? All right. Chair will entertain a motion. We have a, what? I did call for public comment, and we didn't have any at that time. And so we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for action. I have a motion by Supervisor Townsend, a second by Supervisor Shucklian. Please vote. Motion passes 5-0 unanimous. We will now take up the consent calendar, and I know that we do have a correction on item 15, so that will be pulled for a correction. And are there any additional items from?
Item 15, yeah, Mr. Chairman, item 15 was corrected, so you can go ahead and vote on
Oh,
it.
so we are okay. Okay, so item 15 is okay. Any board members have any additional items that need to be pulled or commented on separately?
I do. Item 29.
Okay, item 29 will be pulled for separate consideration. And then anything else from members of the board? Members of the public? All right, seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion on the balance of the consent calendar. We have a motion by Supervisor Valero,
Second.
second by Supervisor Shucklian. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously, less item 29. We will take that up this time.
It's okay, Keith. I just have a comment. As usual, I hope that I am in full support of this, the K-9 program. I just hope that when the new K-9 comes on board, he and or she will make an appearance at the board.
Absolutely, we'll make that happen, Supervisor Shucklian.
All right, then I move approval.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Shucklian, a second by Supervisor Valero, as long as Busby accommodates the K-9. Sigley will be here anyways. Okay, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we will move on and take up item 31 in the untimed section of our meeting, which is a request from the Board of Supervisors staff to approve sending a response letter to the California Office of Emergency Services regarding the Board of Supervisors' action on May 19th, 2020 to amend staff's letter of support of the local regional variance process.
Good
Tammy.
morning, board members, CAO Jason Britt, and County Council. Tammy Weicker-Adkins, Chief of Staff for the Board of Supervisors. Your board indicated a desire to respond to a letter from the California Office of Emergency Services, as you noted, that was received on May 19th of this year. You have before you a draft letter of response to Cal OES. I would respectfully request that you I'll take your feedback and any requested adjustments at this time, and I'm also happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions or comments from board members? Supervisor Valero? She was, her comment was regarding the consent calendar.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right. So I just have a brief edits to this, going down to the second paragraph, deleting the first sentence, and then starting with the county proclaimed a local emergency. And then the rest of the edits that I do have are minor in grammatical concerns, and so I did share a copy with Melinda, if I can give you a copy. And then there are additional copies should that be requested or needed.
I just see him. I'll see him.
Okay, Supervisor Crocker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to note that despite the fact that Cal OES sent a threatening letter about lack of funding, this county, when they asked for help Sunday to send resources for rioting, that we answered the call. So we're willing to partner despite the rhetoric that they like to send out. That doesn't need to be included in the letter. I just want to make that comment.
Okay. Any additional comments? I know that I do have one suggested edit. In the second paragraph, I know Supervisor Valero requested that the sentence be removed. That's fine. But the language I would like reflected in the second paragraph is as follows. The board's action of May 19th, 2020 to add items A through D to the letter of support for the now approved local variance attestation for the county's Stage 2 readiness plan was a statement of intent. This statement was born out of the board's and community's frustration with the COVID-19 pandemic and the shifting rules and metrics for further advancing into Stage 2 of the state's pandemic resiliency roadmap, including the infection rates and deaths associated with skilled nursing facilities that are under state, not county, licensing and regulation. The statement was intended to declare the county's intention to move as quickly as possible through stages 2 and 3 of the roadmap to save jobs and businesses while concentrating the county's resources on assisting with problem areas and populations in the county, including the elderly and health compromised individuals, skilled nursing facilities, hospitals, and businesses or agencies with reported outbreaks. And I expect that language to be repeated verbatim in the motion. I'm kidding. Those are my suggested use of
That's how
words.
your humor always comes down, is just no response. That's not a sentence, that's kind of another paragraph.
Yeah, it just is, it's changing the language of paragraph number 2.
Well, I have a comment. I'm fine with either one. I think I understand Supervisor Valero's wants in saying this. I mean, obviously, we've had some contention with Cal OES and whatnot, and, I just think it's time for I'll put it nicely, the spitting contest to be over. I think the governor had said that he's willing to work with us collaboratively. We have moved into the same phase as everybody else, so I think, to make this letter, make a point, but make it as cordially as possible is important to move ahead and move beyond this whole situation. So,
and again, I'll just say this was a letter that was addressed originally to Jason Britt as the CAO of the county, and Jason felt it was most appropriate as the response to come from the Board of Supervisors to capture our intent.
No, I'm fine with the
and
response.
to clarify. So,
right.
Supervisor Townsend?
Actually, my comment was addressed.
You can okay.
And I just, again, like to just, and I'd like to just echo our colleague Shaklian, again, just the cordial response and being able to, again, work together in resolving these issues. So thank you.
All right. Is there any public comment related to this item? I know that I had a request for this item from Ms. Pamela Silva. No such comment. Are there any phone comments? Or do you have a comment? Okay, yeah. I thought you were shaking your head no. So go ahead. You can make your comment at this time.
Okay.
I have a different hat on this time. You were no hat, no hat, no.
It's the same hat. Okay, regarding this whole thing with the governor and opening the businesses, we can go to Walmart. Walmart's open, but everybody needs to understand that the Constitution can't be ignored. Our rights cannot be ignored. The 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law. Now, I don't see anything going on equal when Walmart can be open and you can't get COVID there. But go get your hair cut and dyed and your nails done, you're going to get it there. No, I don't think so. Keep in mind, what he's doing is unconstitutional. Gavin Newsom is unconstitutional when he's saying some can open and others cannot. So he's picking winners and losers. That is not equal protection under the law. 14th Amendment, it's in the Constitution. He's the governor of insurrection. He does a lot of things that are against the Constitution. And I'm here to stand and say, look, tell him it's against the Constitution. Not only is it rude, everything he's doing to us, it's not nice, it's a boot on our neck, and I'm quite frankly tired of it. I live in the United States. We're under federal protection. That's the same reason why our president said, if the governors don't do anything, we'll send in the military, because we have the right to protection, even if our governor doesn't do it. So here we are again. He's breaking the Constitution, and you guys could stand on that also, just putting it out there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any additional public comments, Madam Clerk? Okay, anyone left in the audience wishing to speak? All right, seeing no further comments, Chair will entertain a motion at this time.
I'll move approval as amended by the amendment that you read, Chair, and also that Supervisor Valero passed out to us.
Okay. We have a motion by Supervisor Townsend. We have a second by Supervisor Crocker. Please vote. Motion passes 5-0 unanimous. We will now move on our agenda and take up item 32, which is a request from the Solid Waste Department to approve and award a construction contract to the lowest responsible bidder, SoCat Construction, LLC, in the amount of $8.132 million for the Visalia Landfill Phase 4 expansion project. Bryce.
So every series of years, 3, 4, 5 years, we need to expand our capacity at the Visalia landfill. This last time we did this was about 3 years ago. We spent around $3.5, $4 million at that time. It got us 3 or 4 years. This time we're looking to sort of double that up. We're going to spend around $8 to $9 million and basically get around 6 to 7 years. Let me just go through this real quickly. So, as you can see from this drawing here, the last time we did it was phase 3, so that's a smaller cell you can see, and this time we're doing phases or cells 4 and 5. And the last set will be 8, 9, and 10, 5 or so, 7 years from now. One of the things we're at right now is our overall fund has around $37 million in it, around that. 3 years ago, we had about $24 million. So you can see over the last 3 years, we gained about $13 million. And in that same time frame, we spent $3.5, $4 million on this new cell. So what we do is we recover that money or recoup that money or save for that money ahead of time. We don't take loans out and pay for it later. We actually anticipate this cost of $9 million, and we save for it ahead of time. So really the money we have of $37 million, 9 of that was planned for this next cell. So that's where the funding comes from. The cell is a normal cell that we put out there in the past. It's got multiple layers of protection to protect the water quality. It gets approved by the water board. And it's very similar to what we've done in the past over the last couple of times. This is just a picture of the area. You can see where it's going to go. It's sort of in that hole where all the equipment is. It's sort of off to the side there. You can see the different cells we've created over the years. And like I said, the last one was back in 2017, cost $3.9 million. One of the things I'll point out is that our engineer's estimate this time around was around $9 million. So we can get that around $9 to $10 million. And it looks like to us that the lowest bid is going to come in around that engineer's estimate. And we had very competitive bidding this time. So we had several bidders at very close pricing. So we felt very good about where we are cost-wise. A lot of the bidders, the company that came in number 2 was one who built our cell last time. The number 1 low bid is a company that has lots and lots of experience of doing these all over the state of California. So what we're looking for today is just an approval from you to go ahead and have these documents signed and to have the funds to go forward with constructing our cell at the Visalia landfill.
All right, we do have a question from Supervisor Townsend.
So Bryce, this is just a little bit off of that subject, but in the overall scheme, I know we're, as Porterville's getting ready for its shutdown, we talked about a while back utilizing it possibly as a transfer station so that the southeastern part of the valley would still be okay. Is that entered into the discussions in that overall scheme and budgeting?
Right, so we're looking at Teapot Dome shutting down in about 4 years, 4 to 5. We are going to do a phased approach, so it won't just shut down completely as we open back up Woodville. And at the same time, we have been reaching out to a particular vendors about reopening up the Early Mar transfer station. So that's to service the area a little farther south. Yep. I realize it's probably not in your district.
Right.
But we're also looking at what it would take to do some sort of activities at the Teapot Dome landfill as well, even after it closes down.
Okay, yeah, I was specifically also thinking about not just the Porterville community, but the mountain communities, because those we have transfer stations that are.
I think that overall we need to take a look at our overall system when we open back up Woodville, because that is a little bit different than having Teapot, which is fairly close to the city of Porterville and to those mountain communities.
Right.
So we need to look at more of a comprehensive system as we get closer to that time frame.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, Supervisor Crocker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a couple of questions. One kind of question and then a request. You mentioned the $30 million in reserves, $10 million being for future expansion sites. What's the other $20 million in reserves? Is that for operations and equipment?
So we have $37 million. $5 million of that is already reserved for environmental problems that may come up. The state of California requires us to do that. So we have $32 million also. About 10 of that is for this cell. The remainder of it is, we're looking at a period of time. We've been able to accumulate this income because we've only had to build cells at one landfill. The other landfill, Teapot Dome, we have not had to do that for a number of years, long time. We're going to enter a stage where we're going to be building new cells or new capacity at Visalia and Woodville at the same time. We want to make sure we have enough funding to get through that sort of duality process. So you can see the next set of cells we'll do, let's say in 5 to 6 years from now, may require another $10 million of Visalia, but also possibly a $10 million influx at Woodville as well. So that's why we're sort of building that cash reserve. We also did some of that looking at an economic downturn that we experienced 10 years ago, and it took us like 7 to 8 years, maybe 9 years to recover from that downturn. So the enterprise fund is completely self-funded, as you know, and is funded on gate fees, and a recession does have an impact on what happens to us. So far, we've seen a little bit of reduction, but nothing dramatic yet because of COVID.
Right. And was partially the downturn as far as in revenues in the last recession because we didn't necessarily have some of the protocols in place, so we were already kind of behind as far as reserve capacity?
Right, both were happening at the same time. You're right. We had a very big expenditure of capital to try and expand our landfills. At the same time, we lost a lot of volume to competitors, and we had the recession all at the same time. So all three of those things happened at the same time and sort of dwindled out all of our reserves.
So right now, hopefully, it's just a matter of whether or not the recession impacts this, but not necessarily the other factors, considering some of the different operational changes that we've made.
Right. I don't see us losing the volume that we did before. I think we're in a good position to handle any type of recession. The other thing I'll point out is we haven't had a rate increase in 6 or 7 years. So we've been able to do this basically on volume increases and the community growing, basically.
So that leads me kind of to the next point. And it's something that I know I've brought up in past board meetings, and I think that it's, the need for having a presentation on the department. The Cal Recycle, the organics issue, I think is still a huge looming issue that we're going to have to deal with, and figuring out strategies from a policy standpoint, I think would be great. Talking about different things that I know that myself and other board members have expressed interest in, as far as cleanup, community cleanups, doing more of that type of outreach, looking at even the possibility of mandatory, enforcing mandatory service, on the valley floor where it's already mandatory, to make sure that we're minimizing some of the litter and the dump offs and all the things that we see on a regular basis. As well as I think, especially in light of some of the financial challenges that we're having as a county as a whole, and being proactive as far as with our hiring freeze, the possibility of outsourcing landfill operations. I mean, I know we've briefly talked about that, but what would that look like from a revenue standpoint? What would that look like from a service standpoint? What would it look like from the customer aspect as far as utilization and possibly rates, and having a deep discussion about that, whether or not that's worthwhile to pursue something along those lines. Thank you. That's all my comments.
Any other comments from anyone else? I just want to say, as a board member that was here when we went into the solid waste crisis that we did before you were here, Bryce, we've come a real long ways, and I really do appreciate the visionary approach you've taken to landfill operations. I know that we had three basically struggling landfills that were all limping along and caused a big hole for the county. And since you've been here with your hard work with the CAO's office and your strong team that you have there, you were able to help pull the county out of that and put us into a very stable place as we move forward. I do think that given the current status, I believe that the plan for the future is a good one, and we've taken all of these steps along the way towards that plan and changing where we are going. It doesn't make sense to me, but I appreciate the hard work that you've put in, and I definitely see a future that it's hard to say clean and bright in the solid waste world, but you know, there's a lot of mandates coming down out of Sacramento. It's going to change the way that landfills look and work going forward, but I appreciate you doing the work that you've done, all the while keeping the gate rate the same for members of the public and your users, your customers. So I appreciate the work you're doing, and that's all the comment that I have. Is there any public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion. We have a motion by Supervisor Townsend, second by Supervisor Shuckley, and please vote. Motion passes 5-0 unanimous. Next, we're going to take up another item. Conveniently, Mike Washam is scheduled right after we talk about the landfill. Request from the Resource Management Agency, and I like your haircut too, Mike, to have the Board of Supervisors provide direction as to which of the two options staff should pursue regarding membership in the Tulare County Economic Development Corporation, EDC.
Good morning, or good afternoon, Chairman and board members. Mike Washam, RMA. We're here, this was a continued matter from May 19th.
Yep.
Your board chose to postpone a decision on this until after the EDC Board of Directors was able to meet and potentially make some revisions. As Supervisor Shucklian reported out earlier this morning, that they chose option C, which is essentially a fixed membership level for jurisdictions. So basically, what we're looking at, the EDC looked at two potential changes, one to their bylaws and one to their membership levels. And the overall impact of the EDC has been in turmoil off and on throughout the last decade regarding the public sector participation in that. This, by eliminating the bylaws section or Article 9, Section 4, which essentially was requiring the budget to be paid by the private sector, they are proposing to eliminate that from their bylaws. So that frees up the obligations that can be spread to other jurisdictions, or beyond the jurisdictions, to the private sector. Maybe a decade ago, the EDC had a lot more participation from the private sector, but as this was moving on, the different cities and jurisdictions were kind of really telling the EDC what they wanted, their expectation, their return on investment, and it took away from what they had been doing with some of the private side as far as other types of businesses. They were doing tourism, they were doing other things, and they had investment from those types of businesses. Those all went by the wayside as the direction was solely to job creation and business attraction. This may open an opportunity for the EDC to pursue other aspects as we move forward. So essentially, taking that away, that was one thing that your board had asked for. Secondly, the decision was to choose option C on their agenda, which was to create a flat fee membership based upon populations of the jurisdictions. Populations over 100,000, which the county has, would be a $50,000 annual fee. The city of Visalia would also be paying the same amount, and the different jurisdictions fit in. Talking just amongst staff, I've only talked to a couple other staff. It looks like Farmersville is still going to be out. City of Tulare will maintain, and those are the only people, and Porterville. Those are only people at staff level I've talked with, but it seems like that they're moving forward with the way that your board had hoped they would. So we're just looking for direction from the board to options of either participating at the new level, $50,000 annual flat fee, or choose not to participate. So that's where it's at now.
All right. Supervisor Shucklian?
Couple of questions. I think that's much better than doubling what we're going to be paying and paying a lot more than everybody else. That being said, I still have some concerns, and I see Paul here regarding the admin committee and it not having a public sector representative. So, Paul, can I ask you a couple questions? How many people sit on that admin committee?
There are currently 4 members. Those positions are all up for election this next month. So there's 4 positions, 4 officers, plus the immediate past chair.
So the 4 is what is currently there, and then there's another with the public, or one of those should be a public sector seat?
Yes, if I can just give a little bit of background, because I think when Mr. Wells and I were before the board last time, we were a little bit confused in terms of the allocation. There was actually, in this current group, there were actually 2 public sector representatives, Teresa Boyce and Monty Reyes. Monty was the incoming chair and was chair for about a month and a half before he resigned. And that was what created that vacancy. And then when Teresa resigned, Harold Wiley was put into that place on a temporary basis through this term cycle. So traditionally, there had been 2 public sector, 2 private sector, and then whoever is the immediate past chair. And so that's the way the election cycle will work next month. There'll be the nominating committee will be looking for 2 public sector, 2 private sector, and then the immediate past chair serving as the 5th member of that committee.
Okay. That's good to hear, because I didn't want just one public sector person and then, it being offset by however many more private sector. And I think, we talked about that before just in general with the governance structure and all that, and we kind of put that aside to go further. So that's the only question that I have right now. Thank you.
Additional questions or comments for either Mike or Paul at this time? Okay, are there any other public comments, or did you want to make any other comments?
No, I'm just here to answer questions. You've had a long morning already.
So Mike, one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Mike, I know you're looking your crystal ball. Should we maintain our membership with the TCEDC other than Farmersville? Have you heard anything about anybody else pulling out?
No, and actually what they've done is reduce the overall funding. So most jurisdictions are still even paying less than what was proposed anyway. So we probably reap the best benefit over what was being proposed, but even Visalia is paying less under this formula. Everybody, with the exception of, I think, maybe Woodlake, might be paying a few dollars more, and I think that was about the only one that was changed.
Yeah, the city of Dinuba.
And the city of Dinuba.
Okay.
So,
all right.
So if you're looking for staff recommendation, I would recommend that the board approve acceptance of the $50,000 annual.
So with that, I will move that we maintain our membership with the TCEDC at this new rate, but also that we, get somebody, some public sector folks on board on that admin, so we have a little more say on how things are run. So.
Yeah, and I just to add a comment, I think we've had a lengthy conversation about this, but I do support the involvement of the public sector on the admin committee. I think that's one thing. If you look at the vast majority of the funding of the EDC, it is public funding. Mm-hmm. So I believe the public presence on the admin committee should be reflected based on the amount of contribution the EDC receives from the public sector. So even an equal weighting of the seats on the admin committee being reflective of the dues paid into membership would be very beneficial. So maybe you could take that to the next meeting. All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Shucklian, second by Supervisor Crocker. Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. All right, next we will take up item 34, which is item that board members may make a referral to staff to have a matter of business be considered for a future agenda. Are there any such requests at today's meeting? All right, seeing none, I look over to County Council. Do we have need for closed session?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, items A, B, and H are off calendar. Item I on the addendum was already heard and there's no report out, so the remainder of the items will be heard and I do expect one announcement out.
Thank you for attending today's board meeting and participating. We will now adjourn to closed session. I believe
reporting out from closed session, first on item E, on a motion by Supervisor Townsend, seconded by Supervisor Shucklian. The board voted unanimously to authorize the defense of the individually named defendants, including those to be named later, with a reservation of rights. This is in the case of Santiago G. Duran versus Anthony Lucky et al., United States District Court, Eastern District of California, case number 1:20-CV-00643. And secondly, reporting out on action taken regarding closed session agenda item F, on a motion by Supervisor Shucklian, seconded by Supervisor Townsend. It was voted unanimously to deny the request or the application to file a late claim and to reject the claim on its merits. No further reports to be made today.